Welcome to Women in B2B Marketing, a show where CMOs, VPs of marketing, and all strong women leaders in B2B discuss their top tactics, strategies, and tips for building high-performing teams, leveraging trends, and ultimately rocking their marketing careers. Made by and for women, insightful for all. I'm your host and 15-year B2B marketer, Jane Serra. Let's dive in. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to us for another episode of Women in B2B Marketing. Today, we have with us Surbhi Agarwal, who is the CMO at Applied Intuition. And everybody, check out her LinkedIn. Her resume is so impeccable and impressive. I'm so excited to jump into a million different things today. There's so many different paths we could go down. You've done every position. You've worked at huge companies and now working at different startups and mid-sized companies. So there's so much to pick your brain about. Thank you for letting us do so today. And welcome to the show, Surbhi.
Thank you, Jane, for having me. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. So, as I alluded to, your journey to becoming CMO is so impressive. Can you tell us how you first got into B2B marketing and how you made it to the CMO position you're at now?
I started my career as an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer from my education. And my first job was in sales. So I joined a company where I was put into an account team, one of the top wireless SoC chip builder, very tough customer. And that was my first job. I was 21 years old. It got me customer oriented. It got me thinking about customer first mindset. And I think that was the seed towards getting into marketing, I would say. I had no idea I'll be doing marketing in my future. And the journey of my career evolved from working in sales, slowly getting into product development, product management, and then product marketing. I did product marketing for almost 15 years in different capacities. Somewhere very early on, building a product, building the roadmap. Some places I also got acquired by a larger company, like a competitive acquisition. And I did pricing, packaging, killing products, sunsetting products, cool. Very different experience, and so forth. With that, I joined a startup called Yellow.ai, and I was hired as an SVP of product marketing to build that function grounds up. And the CEO realized that they needed a CMO who was coming from a product marketing mindset. And he promoted me to be a CMO. So it was a promotion into a job which I had never done before. And this was very recent, just before Applied Intuition. So I learned a ton in terms of demand gen, brand, corporate marketing, running functions which were my peers earlier, taking ownership of all of them. So it was quite a fast-paced learning, like drinking from the fire hose.
Yes.
So that's how I got into B2B marketing. I've built my career in B2B, but touched into sales and then product and then eventually landed in marketing. So that's where I am right now.
It's like the perfect trifecta because you have the sales background, the product background. So both teams will respect you because you've been in their shoes and then the marketing background. So huge. Very cool. So two things I want to go into. One is, and we can tackle this first, going from huge companies like Intel and Google, and then to other size companies and different stage companies and just very different experiences. What did you learn most, or what is the biggest difference between all of these different companies and stages that you've worked with?
Yeah, I think even within larger companies, I saw varying differences, in terms of culture, business strategies, how we were prioritizing budgets and so forth, depending on the team, which team I was on. I think at a very high level, if you think about it, a large company is more structured. There are more processes, there's more structure. There's also more professional growth opportunity, rotation programs and so forth. In a smaller startup, when I moved from Google to Yellow.ai, which was a Series C startup, they were a complete mix of processes, right? Mm. And a person who was leading a $1 billion business at Google, for me, it was a huge shift. So I had to adapt a lot in terms of thinking through, okay, you cannot compare it with your other large company experiences, but you have to think about literally starting a new team within a company sort of a thing, which I had done in Google as well. So that was something which helped me think through the adaptability as well as bring in the flexibility elements as well. A startup gives you a lot more in terms of that ownership, flexibility, a lot of changes that you can make much faster, right? The pace is really high. And if you are a kind of person who's excited about that, I think that really works. And I would also say sometimes there's a misnomer, you think, oh, she was at Google for so many years. But I would tell you, there was a year in my career in Google where I had 6 managers, a lot of product change, like
Wow.
strategy changes and so forth. So things do happen in large companies also, where we have an MVP approach, where we have a approach of it's okay to fail, it's okay to try and so forth. So all the way from, especially like when you're in the early stages of product development, testing the product in the market, I have seen that in large companies as well. So for me,
Yeah.
it was not a very like big change in some ways, but also there was change in the terms of like ability to get approvals fast, ability to move the needle faster. The pace was something which was really exciting to see in a
Yeah.
startup. And that's what I'm enjoying a lot right now.
Yeah. Do you think that at CMO level, there's less red tape for you? But I wonder, do you think that is another big adjustment is just being able to move faster? Like you're saying, this is actually great insight on things do move fast and there is change at the big companies too, like managerial changes, organizational changes, all of that happens, especially the last few years.
Okay.
But the being able to own things and not go through a million approval cycles, is that an accurate perception that we have? I haven't worked at a huge company, so I'm
100%.
curious. Yeah.
I have worked in Intel versus Google. I can give you like stark example differences from there as well, right? Intel is
Yeah.
very hierarchical. So approvals go like
Ah.
hierarchical up like that. And that takes longer because you're presenting and then you're representing and then a committee is making a decision and moving further and so forth. So it takes a longer amount of time, obviously depending on the project that you are leading with, but sometimes it will go all the way to the C level also. And
Yeah.
Google, on the other hand, is very highly matrixed organization. Decisions are
Yeah.
very democratic. So it's less hierarchical. There is hierarchy, but there is
Mm.
more democracy over there, which means if you're launching a product, everybody who has a seat on the table should say yes to it. So
Mm.
a lot of times things get longer, the timelines get longer because you're trying to chase perfectionism. And that was a big
Yeah.
learning for me because I came from a hardware industry, coming to Google in
Yeah.
a software world. I was chasing that perfectionism. And
Yeah.
that was one of my first learnings that it's okay to launch something at 80%. So it's a 80-20 rule, which really works.
Yeah.
And that was a complete mind shift change because in hardware world where operational margins are very low, where failure is not an option, where you have to have a chip 100% working,
Yeah.
very different change. And I
Yeah.
felt like Google was much faster than Intel compared to like, where the
Cool.
cycles are 2.5, 3 years versus
Yeah.
at Google, it was like every quarter you were shipping a product. Now we're at a startup where we ship product every 5 weeks. We're getting faster there. But
Yeah.
you're so right. It's a challenge of approvals, decision making. How do you move things forward? How do you keep pushing the boundaries and so forth? And it sometimes definitely gets really frustrating when things are not moving or you have to get million buy-ins to get moving.
Yes. I can imagine. In seeing all of these different experiences, can you see yourself going back to a huge corporation again? Or do you think it once you've seen that and then come into a fast-paced startup environment, is it hard to go back?
I think I have mixed feelings about it. Going back and doing the same sort of work would not be an option for me
Yeah.
because I've been there, done that. I've tasted an apple, which is much more juicier and sweeter. So it's
Yeah.
difficult to let it go in some ways. Even if I have
Yeah.
an amazing opportunity to lead a big function back in a larger company, I think I'll definitely take on my learnings from my startup world and bring it there. I think that would be
Yeah.
something as a change leader. I have done many
Yeah.
changes, like even in startups. I would love to take some of those learnings. So that's number one. And the second thing is that I've always been very driven towards entrepreneurship. If at all,
Yeah.
my next step should like align to my passion, which would be
Yeah.
starting something of my own or owning something of my own. I do run a consultancy and board advisory and all of that on the side, but it's
Yeah.
not full time. So it will mean that following my heart would mean getting more leaner and starting my own.
Yeah. Love that. Because you read my mind. I was going to ask you career-wise what you see next for yourself. But taking a step back, did you always see or always strive for a CMO position? Was that always something that was on your list to achieve?
Not at all. I don't think this
Wow.
is my like dream job, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is something which happened, like I was saying, almost 3.5 years back, where I
Yeah.
was elevated into this position. I have a ton to learn in this role, even today. I
Yeah.
feel like there's always, every day, I'm learning a lot.
Always.
I have
Yeah.
done a lot of change management, organization build. I've done that in the past and I've enjoyed that doing at Yellow as well. learned various functions as a CMO, but there's so much more to own as well. I think the biggest piece which I'm learning from here is how to own a business function, all the way from strategy to business decisions to managing budgets and all of that. And then take that and start applying it into other functions like on product, because I have a lot of product experience. In my previous company, sales development reps, SDRs reported into me as well. So got a flavor of that as well. But I want to take those learnings forward, keep growing my skill sets and scaling up into a role where, like in the future, owning a company, building a company would be something that I'll be passionate about.
Yeah. I love that. I love that it seems like you're planning ahead, but you're open to what comes your way as well, different opportunities. If you weren't planning to be CMO one day, what was your original plan or kind of goalpost before that?
Just stay on the product side, because I was from sales, I moved into product management and then in product marketing. I wanted to stay on the product side. In fact, I did my MBA in 2014. I graduated from UC Berkeley. And at that time, I was like really hoping to get into consulting, management consulting. So I did an internship at McAfee in the corporate strategy. I was the office of the CEO. It was really fun to think my managers were like from Bain, ex-Bain and all that. So it was really, really like hands-on. What a great experience it was. But then I also realized like I'll have to give up my 10, 11 years of experience in tech in B2B and then start from associate level and just work with other 20 years old plus to continue to build on and hone on my career. So I'm very level-headed, very logical in that way. And I think it comes from just the way I've been brought up. I'm an immigrant in this country, came alone all the way at the age of 21. So first women engineer in the family, first person to ever travel outside India all by myself. I did not have any friends or family or even an acquaintance in the US when I moved here. So
what made you want to come here? And what do you think gave you that drive to be all of these firsts? Because if you can't see this for anyone listening, I was clapping, slow clapping.
I think my parents have been the biggest support. My dad is an engineer. My mom is a doctor. Growing up in India, if you're a smart kid, you are either a doctor or an engineer. There's no third option. And I'm talking about the times in 1990s. That is how it was. No other field, no other education was ever considered valuable. So I had only two options. I did not want to dissect frogs or rabbits and say engineering is the next best choice. I'll just do that. I went to a top tier school, Delhi College of Engineering in India, in Delhi. And I was a university topper. I got 5 gold medals there, all the way from the university to for academics, for extracurricular and so forth. And at that point, I had an opportunity to go for a full scholarship, like a DART scholar to Germany, to the Technical University of Munich to do my master's, or take on a job to get some hands-on experience. And my father at that time said, look, you can always study. You'd never know what area you want to specialize in. Why don't you take this job, work in a customer-centric role in a sales org and see where you go? And from there, it has been like, sure, why not? And that required me to move to the US. So I did that. I moved to Austin, Texas, got acquired. And I said, I raised my hand. Like you said, always looking for the next opportunity. I said, company acquired. I want to explore California. I want to move there. I want to explore. And my plan was to be in California for a couple of years and then move somewhere else. But and I've been here since.
You stayed. I can't blame you. California is such a nice state in so many ways. I love that your dad gave you that advice. I love that advice because to me, when you're fresh out of college, undergrad, you don't really know what you want to do yet. Usually, some people do, but many don't. So getting that hands-on experience can tell you what you want to do or study next and go into that. So that's such good advice to learn what actually you're passionate about and follow that and then go back to school.
Yeah, and I never regretted that decision. I do get emails from DART scholars all the time. I sometimes go and speak as well in Berlin. I've gone in as a guest speaker, but I've never regretted that decision.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I love that you speak so do you go back and speak to the students and give them just your journey and share your story?
Yeah, it's a very close network. Once a DART scholar, you're still a DART scholar, even if you didn't go to the university. So bring you back in to connect with students, even talk about the program in general. How did you go through the scholarship process or application process? So all of that, even the students who are now in their undergrad back in India, even to them as well.
Yeah, very cool. I love that. So you can share your story with students and people that are figuring out what they want to do and their initial path. So you can teach them
I
a
truly
lot.
believe, Jane, that there is no cookie cutter kind of a recipe, right? Like, sure, if I would have done the master's and gone to Germany, maybe it was a different career path, right? Or maybe I would have still landed here in some way or shape or form. But I guess it's not like at the age of 20, 21, you can really dot out your career path. It's so difficult to even think of that. And I know some people have that clarity of vision, like where they want to go. But I really want to like chat with other people, other women, other leaders, and see how did they get here. And most of the stories you would hear that it wasn't like a set plan. It was never.
Yeah. No, what it's reminding me of, and this is probably because budgeting season is going to be upon us soon, but it reminds me of budgeting and marketing, right? Like we always have to think about, okay, this is the plan for next year, but we have to have some flexibility in that because things change, the environment around us changes, what opportunities we have change. So you have to be able to be flexible and agile with that budget and your plan for the next year. So similar with your career path.
It's you just spoke of what's our life budgeting and life around it for sure. Yes.
So funny. You mentioned something to me when we were messaging on LinkedIn that you think that product marketing is so critical for any CMO to have that experience in. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
I'm truly really passionate about product marketing. I think more than a CMO job, I'm still very much like a product marketer. I run the function like an engineer, very black and white. A lot of people think marketing is very fluffy. People use terms like flashy and whatnot. I'm such a data-driven person that for me, I run the function in a very black and white mode. So I'll tell you why I think product marketing is very important. From my experience, what I have seen is that product marketing is super strategic function. It is one kind of like persona within the company which understands your customer, which understands what it means a product market fit, right? What are the value propositions of the product and how to best tell it to the customers, right? Which means that the product marketers have to understand the pain points of the customers. What are the challenges that they're facing? What is their BATNA? What are the other competitive solutions out there? And then they have to communicate those value props in a more compelling manner so that it is understandable to the customer and drives business value back to the company. So given that, which is what I've done along my career, I realized that it's not only just a strategic function, but I actually think it's a golden triangle where product marketing takes on the strategy and connects it to the execution with demand gen and brand. So this is something which I started in Google. This golden triangle concept I started in Google, where I was a product marketing head heading for data and AI products. I had to work with the demand gen team to put together campaigns, but which also meant what messaging, what kind of value props, how are we going to put the narrative out there? What is our message house? All of that together. And then piece it together with a brand team to think through what are those creatives? How do we test them? How do we take it to the market? What budgets are we talking about? So this concept of golden triangle was something that I learned as a product marketer. When I got promoted to be a CMO, I built the same thing in my team. They were working in many different silos. Hey, I'm demand gen person. I own the budget and all that. I said, okay, let's just cut that out. Let's just first understand who's our ideal customer profile. What do we care about them? Enabling the PMMs to learn more about the product, working with the sales, collaborating with the finance heads, getting approvals from legal, that cross-functional skill set that a product marketer has, I think that naturally takes you onto your next journey as a CMO. Whereas some of the other functions within marketing, sometimes you are more expert and subject matter expert internally and maybe with the external stakeholders. A product marketer has to do it both internally and externally. And I felt that for me, initially, obviously, I had the imposter syndrome, and kid me not, like I reached out to so many CMOs in the Valley within like my realm of reaching out, my previous managers, leaders. Can I do this? Am I going to be able to do this? I don't know so many other things. Like I don't know how to measure brand and so many things. And I just felt like after talking to so many other people, I realized a lot of these marketing leaders have grown from one of these pillars, one of these functional pillars, and then landed there. So I realized I'll hone on my subject matter expertise and then hire for complementary skill sets, like skills which I did not have, and bring the best people from the market onto my team and then lead the function. So I think if you have that mindset, anybody who has that mindset, who can think about the product market fit, working with the founders on the product positioning, the company's positioning, how do you define the pricing of the product with the sales team. I think those are some really valuable skill set that product marketing brings and sort of like pivotal to be a CMO.
Yes. I'm nodding along with everything you're saying because the more I've seen product marketing over the last few years, it's in my last 2 positions at least. No, I think 3 now. My first hire has been product marketing because I see the value. And it's almost so product marketing, it makes me very excited. But also I feel bad for product marketing because there's so much on their plate, right? Because everything you just touched on, like there's product market fit, knowing the customers, the value props, competitive intel, pricing, packaging. Like what does product marketing not touch? They're involved in everything. So it's a lot.
Not so good in thinking through how much money to put, which campaign, and how would that fit
there we go.
Indonesia versus France versus Latin America and so forth. They're really good in terms of thinking from outside in, inside out, building product roadmaps and stuff. They are missing out on that execution piece. So I definitely respect like the demand gen function equally much because I think that's a very high pressure function also, where you're constantly working on quality of leads, closing business, conversion of the pipeline, ARR goals, and so forth. So having learned all of that in such a short amount of time, I have a huge respect for like demand gen function and as well as the golden triangle that I talked about. The whole thing feels like, I think it just cannot survive if the 3 pillars are not standing together with each other. And I've seen that.
True. So can you walk us through, and you don't have to name the company or anything, but how have you seen the lack of a golden triangle failing? So the lack of the collaboration between product, brand, and demand gen.
Yeah, and I'll talk about very openly, right? From a Yellow.ai standpoint, the company which I was promoted to be the CMO, the biggest thing was that the functions were operating in silos. The product marketing function was a brand new function, which I stood up with 5 people. And then there was rest of the marketing, which was almost 70 plus people.
Wow.
And there was the further sort of silos, like where does the content sit? Is content marketing a brand thing, or is it a demand gen thing, or is it a thing by itself? And that's, everything. I think, to debate. Even you and I can chat about it at length. Thing which was eye-opening to me when I got into the CMO position. All I had to do was keep the title aside. Let's start understanding what are we doing, how are we operating, what is the top-level business goal, and how are we achieving it. There were a few learnings. One, the content marketing piece was unclear. What we were telling to the customer, the stories were unclear. All the company was optimizing was for SEO, which was writing 700 blogs quarter. And that was like, wow, writing for whom? And they were like, you don't get it. This is very important for the company. And we have been really successful because it's important for SEO. And I said, we don't write it for Google algorithm. We write it for the eyeballs that are going to read it. We have to drive engagement, human engagement. So that was number one. Second thing which I found out where the golden triangle did not exist and where it was failing was cost. Costs were so high because everything was run in silo. Messaging, which would have not worked in Japan, was not only amplified, but put dollars on LinkedIn, on Google Ads, CPC, all of that was happening. When I started unwrapping the puzzle, it just felt like, man, we are throwing the money down the toilet. This is ridiculous. All I had to do was cut things out. Stop this, cut this, hold on to this. That was my first thing as a leader, to just stop these extra spends, where I realized there was no understanding of the market. There was minimalistic understanding of what the customer need was. Just because we have 5 different products, we can't just amplify one product because we want to just sell it. Does the customer or the market even care about it? Do we understand what is the competition over there? Nothing of that sort had ever happened. The only thing they were measuring is click-through rate, how many people clicked on it. And to your knowledge and to the viewers here, Japan still does not use a lot of LinkedIn. So a lot of dollars that are you spending in your advertising on LinkedIn is not going to be very beneficial from a B2B marketing standpoint. So those were some of the insights that came through. And then the third piece was team collaboration, the culture of the team. When that golden triangle was not established, there were conflict between the team members quite a lot. There was lack of clarity of roles and responsibilities. Who's doing what? How are we measured? What is our ROI? is the marketing team successful? Even the sales team saying, is the marketing giving us value or not? Those were very clear things to me where I said, look, we have to do a complete reorg, redesign it from a very blank slate, literally a white canvas, to think through what is the org, what is it going to look like, how are we
Yeah.
going to operate, and so forth. So it was a complete redo of the marketing organization.
What do you think was key to creating and setting up the golden triangle when you did that reorg? What were your first steps to make sure that collaboration was in place and that alignment?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing was like clearly understanding these functional pillars and putting real clarity on. I truly believe the OKR approach, which Intel invented. I know some people, especially in the startups world, don't believe in it, but I think this is important to like thinking what is our OKRs and what is our RACI. The RACI model defines who's responsible, who's going to take an action, who's just an observer, and who's just going to get informed. So that kind of sets the mission of each of the functions. I had to first hire internally or externally the heads of these three functions. I also made sure that since this was a global team, I had to think through a chief of staff who would help me in terms of like day-to-day operations back in India or Latin America or Europe, because it was very spread out from a time zone perspective.
Yeah.
But the third piece, which was equally important, was to cut out the teams, which there was a lot of redundancy. Those were some really hard decisions. There was a day where I had to let go of 12 marketeers on my team. It wasn't an easy decision. Now, if you ask me, would I have done that at Google or Intel? It would have been impossible, in fact. So even if I knew there was a middle management fat or there was redundancy in the roles or extra agency spends happening, it would have taken n number of more months to get there. For me being in a startup, I was empowered to make the right decisions. So I was able to bring the cost down to 1/4 of the operating cost where it was. I'm not going to share the numbers, but it was in multi-million-dollar spends. Brought it down to 1/4, which was very much in line to what the CEO wanted to see. I got the headcount down by 1/3. So it was like letting go of 2/3 of the organization and building a very highly functional, like high-performing team, but a loyal team. So empowering people such that I was able to understand where their skill sets were, which function of these three golden triangle legs would they like to sit in, and what would be their career sort of advancement, and like how would they see themselves flourishing as well. So for the 2 years that I was there was not a single attrition, which was something which I would have regretted. These were the leaders that I had placed for these three pillars were all there till the end of my journey, at least there. So I was really proud of hiring the right people at the top and then also having a team underneath them with multiple functions around it. And I would say that, Jane, that I was not perfect in that journey. There was some experimentation, I would say. For example, the content marketing piece was a puzzle, like where should it fit? Finally, I moved it under product marketing, which was a much better
Interesting. Fit. Probably depends on the company, right? Always
depends on the company. Similarly, AR. Typically, AR sits under brand marketing is what I have seen in the past. But here, being in a startup and being that we wanted to be very closely working with the analysts on the magic quadrants of Gartners of the world, building those technical relationships and demos, moved that also under product marketing. So product marketing became core towards the strategic core, and then everything else was like hubs and spokes model. So hub and then spokes, like demand gen was spokes, events was spokes, field marketing was spokes, and then brand was overlaying a layer around all of that.
Yeah. Do you think that when you first set this up and made these changes, was communicating this model and this visual and plan that you had key so they understood how they all worked together and that there wouldn't not be any more silos and how instrumental each of them was to one another? Did you just set the tone that way?
100%, multiple times. I used to do regular, like all hands in my team from a motivational standpoint, but also bringing more clarity to where I was heading and what I was doing. I also was very clear that, trust me, that this is nothing that is going to take away your jobs or any of that. Each of you are valued. Who have stayed behind are equally valued. I also saw like people who moved between roles. There was somebody who was doing content and he wanted to be doing field marketing for Asia Pacific. And I said, okay, you've never done this, but I want to give you a chance to upskill yourself. So that was something which I did internally within the team in a short period of time, which actually got a lot of positive reinforcement because people were pigeonholed into areas just because of their previous resumes and they wanted to try something else. Some worked, some were challenging. Some places we had to help and coach. So I'm a very hands-on person. Even since a lot of team was based out of India, I would work till 2 a.m. in my night to manage hours for them, like work in their hours, open up my calendar for open office hours because I had 4 levels of org and I would have them come and chat with me for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Could be a career conversation, could be something political. There was a lot of elements of like people who had been in the company for 6 years, in my marketing team for 6 years, who may or may not be functional enough. That kind of like politics, bureaucracy, sabotage. I went through a lot of stuff, which was very interesting. And I had to make some really quick decisions in terms of clearing the ground and really working with people who I trusted and who trusted me. And I think that is something which is really important to me. Trust is a key word, or I would say a value, which is very important to me. I lead my current team also with the same, which is I give you trust on day zero. It's a glass full of trust. Here you are. Welcome to my team. Now it's up to you. How you drink it, how you tip it, how you trash it, it's up to you. Or how you grow it. So
what
that's
a good visual. I love that. Do you think that having these kind of skip level meetings where anybody can book time with you to chat about whatever is on their mind and their struggles or their goals and how to get there, your advice, that seems just instrumental for creating this open, collaborative team. Do you think that's correct? Or what else has those skip levels done?
100%. I think it also helps me understand what's happening at the ground level. Sometimes somebody's troubled about their own, like they're thinking from their own bubble, such and such is happening, or their story or their narrative. But that helps me understand what's happening at the ground level, what's working and what's not working. It makes me really hands-on. The other thing is not every person has a voice. It helps me build that voice in people. Culturally, different people are very different. Like a person on my team from Mexico was very verbal, very expressive in terms of like challenges that she was facing or what she was enjoying or the change that she was saying. But from some other cultures, I realized like people would not speak up. Even on a virtual meeting, since this was like COVID time and whatnot, I would expect them to open up. It's a safe space. Whatever you say to me, it's me. But it did help me understand a lot of like dynamics within the team or with my team and the sales team. And that was super important. It's not just like a field marketer working in APAC, getting hammered down by a salesperson, and it's his job. It's my job to step in and bring those insights into a larger meeting. Like we used to have weekly business reviews and quarterly business reviews and making decisions before our board meetings and so forth. Those levels of meetings actually got me so much insight to making the right decisions for the function and for the business overall. And I'm so proud that the team was able to enter into the North America market, which had not happened in 6 years of the company's history. They were more APAC and Europe-based customers. And we grew the business from 0 to 10 million ARR, 10x the business in 1.5 years. So I'm really proud of what the team accomplished and how we were able to build a 24/7 turnaround team, because now we had teams based in US, we had teams based in Asia, and there was this always with the time difference, how we were able to collaborate. I think collaboration is a key, which I feel like if we have more women listeners, they would understand that women lead with collaboration, men lead with competition. And
interesting.
I think like when we lead with collaboration as our key sort of value, we think about that not within our teams, but also within our key stakeholders, within the company, within our customers, with our partners, and so forth. And I think that's where the magic happens.
Yes to everything you're saying. And one thing that stuck out to me is that it feels like you're creating, and you've created at each of your positions as a leader, an environment that offers psychological safety, right? What we say there for your team. How do you think that you've achieved that and created that type of environment despite having to make tough changes and decisions for your team?
There are two things which comes to my mind. One, I'm a very authentic person, and authenticity, I think, leads to people trusting you. Because even when I was letting go of 12 people, you cannot imagine how other 60 plus people may have felt that are they next? Are they going to be the next ones next week, next day, next month, next quarter? They won't know. But I think like helping them understand where I was coming from, why I made these decisions, why we had to go forward and execute them. I took ownership of that. I helped them understand that if they are the part of the team, what is the value that they bring to the system? And then trust is super important. If I'm giving them trust, then they have to trust me. If I'm like offering my 100% trust to them, they have to trust me that I have their back. So that was something which is very important. The second piece, I would say, other than this authenticity and a very transparent culture that I built, I always strive for like an open dialogue, which is it's not just a one-way conversation where I come for an all hands or a team meeting, take away the space, right? Speak.
Yeah.
I am a good listener. I feel like I sit down in the meetings, get everybody's mind share. I've noticed in larger companies, in meetings, whoever has the strongest voice, growing up in a men's world, working with in the product and sales teams where men always took away, even if like you have an idea and you shared it, they would know how to summarize it. There were some learnings from that. I wanted to take that as a learning for my leadership. And whenever I would run meetings, I would make sure that every voice is heard. And I think that builds a lot of that safety, that voice, like people can find their voice, even if they have not done in the past. Give you a small example. If I have to run some feedback or something, I would use tools like Kahoot or I don't know, some plugins like within Slack, which would help you like vote and put your perspectives, or maybe do blind surveys for understanding where the organization is and so forth. So that's important. And for me, like understanding that's built is like, again, also data driven, because like I was saying, I did a lot of blind surveys. Every time I had to make some changes or ask the team to do more with less, hey, I'm going to cut your budgets. This is for your own good. And trust was important because helping them understand why am I cutting the Japan market spends. It's not about they're going to lose their job or anything, like they wouldn't have anything to work with, but like focusing their energies in the right direction. Focus is something which is very important to me. I think that is something which I communicate well to the teams, even in my current organization, is how do you prioritize? If you're unable to prioritize, why am I prioritizing this for you? And let's just focus. Let's do more with less and see the impact. So when an individual on the team sees the impact of the business and connects the dot of their work, their small world to the business impact, I think that immediate trust is formed and built further.
I love this. I think we keep coming back to trust being so important as a leader and having those open conversations and dialogue, right? You're not speaking at them, you're speaking with your team and communicating why you made decisions, which can strengthen the bonds and make them think, okay, this makes sense. It's hard and it's sad to see my friends not here anymore, but I understand the vision and why we need to do this. And they can have that dialogue with you, which is huge, and focus, so important. I want to think a little bit into Surbhi and how you became who you are today as a person, as a human being. Is there any moment, pivotal moment, or pivotal person? It can be either or, a moment that changed things or that put things into place, or a person that guided you. Anything that you think back when you look at what brought you to your career and becoming where you are now and your path and being the strong leader, what has impacted that? Is there any one moment or person?
There was definitely a point in time where I had a personal hardship. I was telling you, I moved to the US by myself and I started working in Austin and whatnot. While I was working in Austin, my first job, there was a personal hardship happened. My visa situation had to leave me, move back to India and move, like basically get out of the country. So I had a major setback because I had to not only give up on this great opportunity, but I had to resign from my job. And because of the visa, I knew that this was a smallish startup, that they would not be able to take care of my personal situation and visa and all that. Getting an H-1B visa is a challenge. There's a lottery, more than, I think 200,000 people apply for it, and there's a cap of 65,000 or something. Wow. I decided to resign and move back to India. After I reached, 2 days later, my boss called me on my phone. His name is Mitch Hines. Such a great leader he is. And he said that we want you to continue working with us, maybe as a consultant, contractor, what may be it. We'll work with the legal team and figure it out. You cannot enter the US, but since you've been working with customers, we have customers in Taiwan, in Japan, in France, and UK. That was the time I took that opportunity. I moved to London. I worked there for 6 months. After that, I lived in Taiwan for almost a year in a small town called Hsinchu. From there, I lived in France, worked on a very key account, ST Microelectronics in Nice. For almost 1.5 years, I was outside of the US, but working with key customers, making a huge business
Wow.
impact while continuing to work with my teams based in Austin with the product teams and whatnot. So I could not enter the country,
Yeah.
but I was able to
Yeah.
work with the customers much more closer. So as a 22, 23-year-old, like I had a great experience of working in different cultures, different countries, made me very adaptable,
Yeah.
made me also accept different norms. I'm a vegetarian, by the way, like living in Taiwan. The only food I used to eat was mangoes, pineapples, and plain white rice every day.
Wow.
Really.
Big
And
change.
huge change. And especially because I was working with TSMC, like on their site with the customer, it's a big foundry, right? You can't be picky or choosy. You have to go where they are going as a customer. You just come along with them. And I was very young in my career. As an IC, I would
Yeah.
just try to gel in. I think that built a lot of resilience in me in terms of
Yes.
adapting to other people, adapting to situations, being resilient, and rebuilding my career from scratch once again. It felt like.
Yes.
And then the lottery happened for H1B. My name got selected. And my boss, Mitch, called me and said, Surbhi, you're one lucky person. I wish I played lottery on your name. And I was like, oh, I actually broke down. I said, really? I don't think I'm lucky,
Aw.
but we just made it work. So that was
Wow.
something very incredible. I don't know if even large companies would ever do that. And
Yeah.
eventually the company
Very
got
difficult.
acquired, and I'm still in touch with my first employers, my first
Yeah.
managers. It's just amazing what they did for me. And
Yes.
I'll forever be grateful for that.
What a great story, because I got goosebumps while you were telling it for two reasons, right? One, it's just so wonderful to feel valued. So when you got that call, that must have just set you off early in your career, right? Feeling, okay, wow, I know what I'm doing. The people value my contributions and want me, are going to work around this challenge that came up and figure this out with me. That
Mhm.
must have just got you so empowered and
Yep.
feeling valued and set you off on this trajectory. And then also opened up new doors to a whole different path and exposure to these new cultures and new opportunities. Just twofold. Good job, Mitch.
Seriously, it felt like they gave me a trampoline and I have to
Yeah.
jump on it and jump really
Yeah.
high to give back onto that trust.
I
They
love
trusted
that.
me and I have to give back in the best way possible. So that's all it was.
Amazing.
It worked out.
Oh, yes. Surbhi, that is a wonderful note to end on too, like coming back full circle to trust. And this is probably where that philosophy of yours stemmed from, or part of it, right?
Sure.
If you had to go back in time, or got to go back in time to see young engineer trained Surbhi, what would you tell her, knowing all that you've gone through now and all the life you've lived? What would you go back and tell her now, just starting out, not knowing which direction to go?
One thing which definitely I will tell to young Surbhi is that do not ever think that men and women are created equal. Because
Mm.
in a world which was full of men, I kept working and trying to prove myself on the equal footing as men. And I kept
Mhm.
waiting for the best outcomes for myself. I thought if I'll work really hard, if I finish this project, I'll get this promotion, I'll get a bonus. I never asked for it. I just kept waiting because I thought the
Yeah.
rules were fair, because I thought the level was same for everyone. I was coming to America, to US, and it is a Western world and it's a fair world. But I realized like gender equality was not here as well. It took me many years
Mhm.
to realize that. In fact,
Mhm.
to some point, I felt like I waited way too long until before I found my voice. So yes, I'll tell to
Wow.
young Surbhi, find your voice, speak up for yourself, learn to negotiate early, and do not have that self doubt, because we all have that self doubt. I think women definitely have that a lot more than men. We are different, we are created different.
Yeah.
And it would be a fool's world if we try to just play like men and assume that all the great things that men would get without asking, we would get that too. So speak up,
Yes.
find your voice, and find it early.
Oh, I want to go to your TED Talk. You should. This is such a great topic for a TED Talk. I'm just like, yes, because don't think that men and women are equal. It's such a powerful statement to start on for a TED Talk. It's because we keep always pushing for equality and we are equal, but it's just not here yet. And it's not the reality. And we have to work within that constraint.
It's
Love
crazy.
that
And even after 20 plus
advice.
years that we still talk about gender inequality in experiences and how opportunities are given to women. We just started talking about like how few women are there, right, in the board meetings,
Yeah.
in business roles,
Yes.
in C-level. So it's an evolution. This coming from a developing country, from India, I had a very different view for America. And I thought like coming to
Yeah.
this world, I'll be treated equally. It will be fair. Definitely, it's
Yeah.
more safer for women, for sure. In a business world, I don't think there's
It's not
equality.
perfect.
Yeah, there's a lot more that needs to happen. So kudos to all the
Yes.
other women who are so much more inspiring than I have seen or been, and all the
Yeah.
work that's happening in DEI space. Really proud of that.
Yes. Thank you, Surbhi, for leading the way as well and just sharing a path, creating a path for us too, and to learn from, and this transparency and trust and having these open conversations and reality checks sometimes, right? But thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your story and being vulnerable and sharing these stories with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jane. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Nice.
It went in every different direction, like you said, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It got me back to where I began, about my career, about my life, and some
Yeah.
nostalgic moments. But yeah, I really
Yeah.
cherished it. Thank you. Thank you for your time again.
Thank you. And where can everybody find you? Is it best to connect with you on LinkedIn and send you a message?
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. Yeah, connect me on LinkedIn. You can also email me at surbhi@berkeley.edu. That's cool as well.
Awesome. And everybody send her a message and request that she get that TED Talk going because we all want to hear more, I'm sure. Awesome. Thank you for joining. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today and listening. Connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you can, spare a moment, rate the show, review the show, share the show. It all helps us get in front of more people in marketing. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Keep sparkling. Bye-bye.